Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to take a look at something pretty familiar, direct mail, but through a really important lens, sustainability. We're digging into Wolverine Solutions Group. Now, these guys have been in the direct mail game for, 47 years?
That's right, nearly half a century.
And they're handling a massive volume, producing and mailing over 2 million communications every single day.
It's a staggering number.
So the big question we want to unpack is, how does a company with such deep roots, such huge scale, actually lead the way on environmentally conscious practices?
Right.
If you're tuned in because you're a sustainability-minded mailer, maybe looking for a clear and comprehensive overview of how to do this stuff without losing impact, then yeah, this deep dive is definitely for you.
I think it's a perfect case study for that.
We're going to explore everything from, sustainable paper, eco-friendly printing, smart design, the whole 9 yards. Really give you that holistic picture of what's possible, even at this kind of massive scale.
And what's really fascinating, considering that 47-year history, is seeing how a company that established adapts. Sustainability wasn't the buzzword 40 years ago that it is now.
Not at all.
So their commitment today, given their history and that huge daily volume, 2 million pieces, it suggests sustainability isn't just like a surface level thing for them.
Right, it has to be deeper.
It seems really embedded in how they operate, and that makes it a really compelling story for anyone thinking about sustainability and scale in mailing.
Okay, so let's start with the basics, the actual paper. For anyone thinking sustainably about mail, that's got to be step one.
Absolutely, it's the most tangible part.
And Wolverine puts a lot of emphasis on Forest Stewardship Council certified paper, FSC paper. What's the real deal with choosing FSC? Why does that matter?
Well, if you think historically, paper production has had a big impact on forests globally. Choosing FSC certified paper is basically a commitment to doing it better. It guarantees the wood comes from forests that are managed responsibly, thinking about biodiversity, local communities, workers' rights, the long-term health of the forest,
So it's about actively supporting sustainable forestry.
Exactly. It means Wolverine, and by extension their clients, aren't contributing to deforestation. They're part of a solution.
Got it. Wolverine also pushes for recycled paper, especially with high post-consumer content. What should someone focused on sustainability know about that choice?
Yeah, and this is interesting because using recycled paper, especially post-consumer waste, at their scale, 2 million pieces a day isn't always straightforward.
I can imagine. Supply issues. Quality.
Exactly. Availability can fluctuate. Quality needs to be consistent for high-speed printing. So Wolverine apparently works really closely with paper mills to lock in supply and ensure it performs. And they're vetting suppliers rigorously, making sure the recycled paper prints well and doesn't cause problems down the line.
So they're proving you don't have to sacrifice quality for sustainability.
That seems to be the message. They're showing it's possible, even with recycled materials, to get good results.
That's important. And they also mentioned communicating these paper choices on the mail piece. How crucial is that kind of transparency for a mailer trying to be sustainable?
Oh, it's vital. Absolutely vital for building trust.
Right.
When you see printed on FSC certified paper or it contains X% recycled content, it's a clear, immediate signal of the brand's values.
It's not just doing good, it's showing you're doing good.
Precisely. It reinforces the brand's commitment, and honestly, it might even nudge the recipient to think about their own choices.
Okay, moving from the paper to what goes on it, inks. Traditional inks often have issues with VOCs, right? Volatile organic compounds. How does Wolverine tackle that for the eco-conscious mailer?
Yeah, inks are sort of the less visible environmental impact, but still significant. VOCs contribute to air pollution. So Wolverine's move towards low-VOC inks is a big step. They're shifting away from older solvent-based inks, things with toluene and xylene, towards water-based or even vegetable oil-based inks.
And that makes a real difference.
Oh, yeah. It can drastically cut their VOC emissions. And importantly, they stress that this switch doesn't mean worse print quality. These newer inks perform really well.
Good to know the visuals don't suffer. They've also invested heavily in digital printing tech. What are the sustainability perks there, especially for a huge operation?
Digital printing has some inherent green advantages. First off, you ditch the printing plates used in traditional offset printing.
Right, left material waste there.
And you also eliminate the harsh chemical washes needed for those plates. Plus, digital is great for print on demand.
Meaning you only print exactly what you need.
Exactly. Minimal overruns, less wasted paper and ink. For a place printing millions of items, that precision adds up to massive resource savings. And they also talk about keeping those digital presses tuned up for maximum efficiency, which cuts energy use too.
Sounds like a constant search for efficiency that doubles as an environmental win.
Hmm.
Let's talk about the design of the mail piece itself. How can clever design actually boost sustainability?
Design is huge, surprisingly impactful. Wolverine talks about designing to standard paper sizes that fit their presses efficiently and meet postal rules.
Seems simple.
It does, but think about it. By avoiding weird custom sizes, you minimize the amount of paper trimmed off and wasted. At their scale, reducing trim waste by even a tiny percentage per piece saves, well, tons of paper overall.
Like packing a suitcase efficiently, but for printing.
That's a great analogy, yeah. They also flag avoiding certain finishes, things like plastic laminates or those really shiny metallic foils. Why should a sustainability-minded mailer avoid those?
Good question. They look fancy, but
But they can be a nightmare for recycling. Plastic laminates especially are really hard to separate from the paper fibers.
so it contaminates the recycling stream?
Pretty much. By choosing simpler designs or coatings that are recyclable, they ensure the mail piece can actually be turned back into paper pulp. It's designing for recyclability, closing that loop.
Okay, crucial point. And even the amount of ink used matters, like big blocks of colors.
Absolutely. Heavy ink coverage, especially dark colors, can make the de-inking process during recycling more difficult and energy intensive.
Huh, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah. Wolverine works with clients to optimize designs, use less ink where possible without killing the visual appeal. Some studies suggest just avoiding a full ink flood can boost the chance of a piece getting recycled by like 15% in some places.
Wow, a small design tweak with a big downstream effect.
Especially when multiplied by 2 million pieces a day.
Okay, let's shift gears. Direct mail sometimes gets a bad rap for waste gailing. Junk mail going straight in the bin. How does a company like Wolverine use data management to tackle that? That seems key for efficiency.
It's absolutely critical. This is where efficiency and sustainability are totally intertwined. Wolverine really emphasizes precise data management.
How so?
Well, think about it. Bad data duplicate addresses, people who've moved incorrect names, leads directly to wasted mail. Wasted paper, wasted ink, wasted postage, wasted transport fuel.
Right, mail going nowhere.
Exactly. So their focus on cleaning lists, validating addresses, removing duplicates before anything gets printed, that's a massive waste prevention strategy. It's about making sure every piece printed has the best possible chance of reaching the right person.
So good data hygiene equals a smaller footprint. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And they also mention refining targeting criteria.
Yes. Using customer insights, demographics, behavioral data, whatever, helps them narrow down the audience.
So it's sending fewer pieces overall.
Potentially, yes. Or at least sending mail only to those most likely to be interested. It's about relevance. Fewer wasted mailings, which is good for the planet, and usually a better response rate and ROI for the client, too.
Quality over quantity, making mail less like noise and more like useful communication.
Precisely.
That ties into the delivery, too. How does Wolverine optimize the actual postal process for sustainability? Because transport has a big carbon footprint.
A very big one. Once the mail is printed, getting it delivered efficiently is key. Wolverine focuses heavily on postal logistics, things like proper sorting and presorting.
How does presorting help?
By doing sophisticated sorting before the mail even gets to the USPS, they can often bypass several postal processing steps. The mail gets entered deeper into the system, closer to its final destination.
Which means less handling and fewer truck miles.
Exactly. Fewer transportation legs, lower fuel consumption, a lower carbon footprint per piece.
They also use terms like commingling and co-palletization. Can you break those down for someone focused on sustainability?
Sure. Think of it like ride-sharing or carpooling, but for mail.
Okay.
Co-palletization means instead of lots of clients sending half-empty pallets or trucks, Wolverine groups mail from different clients together onto fewer, fully loaded pallets and trucks. More efficient use of space.
Makes sense. And commingling.
Similar idea. They mix mail from different clients together in the sorting process to reach higher volumes that qualify for deeper postal discounts and, again, more efficient USPS handling.
So grouping things together saves trips and fuel.
Basically, yes. Maximizing truckloads, optimizing sorting, working with regional dropship facilities to get mail closer to the endpoint efficiently, it all reduces transport emissions.
It sounds incredibly complex, but focus on shaving off environmental impact at the logistics stage.
It has to be at their scale.
Okay, so the mail gets delivered, read. What happens then? Recycling is the next big step, right?
Absolutely. End of life is crucial. Wolverine focuses on using materials that can be easily recycled in most standard municipal programs.
Like the uncoated paper we talked about.
Exactly. Uncoated or lightly coated papers are generally good, avoiding those problem materials like plastic laminates or certain glues that gum up the works.
And making it obvious how to recycle.
Yeah, intuitive design helps, making sure different components are easily separable. The easier it is for the recipient to toss it in the right bin, the more likely it is to actually get recycled.
And it's not just the client mail. Wolverine has its own internal recycling, too.
That's right. They manage big recycling programs right inside their production facilities. Paper waste from setup and trimming, used ink cartridges, packaging materials they try to capture and recycle as much as possible internally.
So they're practicing what they preach.
It shows a commitment that runs through their whole operation, not just the final product they send out for clients. It's about walking the walk.
Okay, walking the walk is good, but how do they prove it? For a sustainability-minded mailer, measuring the impact is important. How does Wolverine do that?
Measurement is key, definitely. For accountability, for improvement. Wolverine helps clients track relevant environmental KPIs, key performance indicators.
Like what?
Could be things like the percentage of recycled paper used in a specific campaign, or the total tonnage of waste diverted from landfill through their internal programs, maybe even estimated carbon savings from using optimized postal routes.
So providing actual data.
Exactly. Giving clients tangible numbers to understand the environmental footprint of their mailings and see where they can do even better next time.
And what about things like certifications? Do those play a role?
They do. Third-party certifications add credibility. Wolverine themselves being FSC certified is a big one. It validates their own sourcing practices. And they also guide clients on using other relevant eco-labels or meeting standards, which helps build trust with consumers who care about this stuff. It adds that layer of external validation.
Got it. They also mentioned localized sourcing. How does that fit into the sustainability picture?
Simple geography, really. Sourcing materials like paper from regional suppliers, working with local vendors whenever possible, it cuts down significantly on transportation miles.
Fewer trucks on the road for long distance.
Right. Lower fuel consumption, fewer greenhouse gas emissions. Plus, it often supports local economies and allows for, closer relationships with suppliers to ensure their practices are also up to par.
Creates a more resilient, lower impact supply chain. What about bulk mailing or batch optimization? How is mailing more at once sustainable? Seems counterintuitive.
It's about operational efficiency. Grouping similar jobs into larger production runs means less setup time for the big printing presses and finishing equipment.
Less starting and stopping.
Exactly. Every time you stop and start a massive press, there's waste paper used for calibration, energy spikes. Running longer consolidated batches reduces that waste and uses energy more efficiently overall.
Okay.
And larger batches often tie into more efficient postal logistics too. Better presorting, easier coordination for things like commingling. So economies of scale translate to environmental benefits here.
Efficiency equals sustainability again.
Yeah.
And even the packaging around the mail.
Yep, they consider that too. Using recyclable envelopes, maybe avoiding plastic windows, using paper-based fill instead of bubble wrap if cushioning is needed.
Right.
Also just minimizing the amount of packaging overall while still making sure it's tough enough to protect the mail during transit so it doesn't get damaged and wasted. It's thinking about the whole life cycle.
It really does sound holistic. Finally, they talked about educating customers, engaging them on sustainability. Why is that important?
Because Wolverine can't drive the change alone. Education empowers their clients.
How so?
By helping clients understand the sustainable options available, different paper types, ink choices, design impacts, and showing them how to talk about those choices authentically in their mailings.
So helping them tell their own sustainability story.
Exactly. Showcasing successful, environmentally responsible campaigns encourages others. It helps shift the whole industry towards better practices. They see themselves as partners in that journey.
So it's not just their own footprint, but helping multiply the positive impact through their clients. Okay, so stepping back and looking at the whole picture.
What really strikes me about Wolverine is how sustainability seems woven into their fabric, despite that long 47-year history, and the sheer scale, that 2 million pieces a day number, is just huge.
Yeah.
Yet it feels like environmental responsibility isn't just a recent bolt-on. It's fundamental, touching everything from paper sourcing to delivery logistics and even internal waste management.
It definitely comes across as more than just a trend for them. It feels like a core principle. We heard concrete examples, right? The focus on FSC and recycled paper, the low VOC
Right,
inks,
the designing for recyclability.
the smart data usage to cut waste, those clever postal optimization tricks, their own recycling programs. It's a lot of different pieces.
And I think for you listening, especially if you're that sustainability-minded mailer, Wolverine's approach offers some really valuable takeaways. Their story shows it's genuinely possible to embed these practices deeply, even in a high-volume traditional industry, and adapt over time without necessarily sacrificing reach or quality. It's a model, really.
It really does make you think differently about direct mail, doesn't it? It's often seen one way, but companies like Wolverine are showing that high-volume communication and a real commitment to the environment can actually go hand in hand. They can drive each other, even.
Yeah, it's innovation driven by responsibility.
It definitely encourages all of us, I think, to consider where we can integrate sustainability more deeply into whatever we do, regardless of the scale. Lots to think about there.